Welcome to Celtic State of Mind. I'm John Dykes, and today I am joined by Stevie Mullan, President of St Roch's. Stevie, welcome back to the show.
Thanks for having me, Paul. Pleasure to be here.
It's always great to have you, and it's a big match day today. European night at Celtic Park, under the lights but with no fans. The Green Brigade have got the banner there. Stevie, you were here last week. We've played, obviously since then, we've played Aberdeen. What was your thoughts at the weekend?
Really enjoyed it. After Thursday night's game, I was looking forward to the game on Sunday, and I don't think Celtic disappointed us. I thought, again, another brave selection by Neil. Bain, Frimpong, Duffy, Beaton, Laxalt, Brown, Calmack, Christie, Rogie, Elinus and Eddie. For the first couple of minutes, I didn't think we had lined up as what we did against Lille. I thought Ryan Christie was playing more in a number 10 role, and I thought for that first 5 minutes, Frimpong got exposed a wee bit against the guy Kennedy. They put in 2 dangerous cross, but full credit to Neil Lenny's backroom staff. They changed that very early in the game, and then Christie went back more and gave him a wee bit more defensive cover, but very comfortable. I thought we played particularly well in the first half. There maybe a wee bit of fatigue came in the second half, but we've seen the game out excellently. I thought Celtic were brilliant. If I was an Aberdeen fan, which I thank God I'm no, I thought Derek McInnes should have been slaughtered. He had a full week to prepare for that game. He took their most effective player, Lewis Ferguson, out of the game, patrol in front of the back four, and he just became totally ineffective apart from a few assaults on Celtic players.
Which he got away with. You know, this is a disappointment, and I don't want to focus on the poor refereeing, but it was another example of that, Stevie. We seem to be saying it with more regularity than ever this season. It was a poor refereeing display. When I was looking at that game, on the back of the Lille performance, there was certainly a lot to be positive about. And I'm going into tonight's game with that positivity. How are you feeling tonight? Do you think Neil Lennon will make minimal changes for the lineup this evening?
I think, again, you know, because of the run of game in the squad, I think he's quite a fortunate position to ask who's willing, who's wanting to play, who's injured, and make his decisions based on that. But whatever team turns up on tonight for Celtic, if they show the attitude to match their ability, then I think Celtic should be able to win the game tonight. A game which then puts you in a fantastic position the next time you play them. You know, where the time you come across Lille again, you could be above them in this table. I'm more than happy with how Celtic have gone. I think from the half time in the AC Milan game, you know, when we took Welsh and Griffis off and replaced them with Christie and Elinus, I think our season has improved performance wise since then.
I'm looking at yesterday. We were looking at El Yunus's performances. I mean, his performances have been discussed many times on a Celtic State of Mind, Stevie, because I think I am a big fan. I've seen in him, certainly in his early months at Celtic last season, a real quality. But then he certainly did go off the boil. And this season, I don't think he started that well, which led to the discussion on here about what is his best position. I mean, in the last few games, we have seen the real El Yunusi, I think, and he's crafting a good partnership out with Diego Laxalt playing in behind him. I think that would support anybody's game having him behind you. How impressed have you been with El Yunusi over the last couple of games?
But it's something we spoke about earlier in the season when the team seemed to be getting rotated regularly. You're not allowed to build up a partnership with a guy playing directly behind you or at the side of you or as a partnership as forwards. You need to be able to complement the guy that you're forming a partnership with. So there's never been a doubt about Elinussi's skill. I think everybody would agree he's a very skillful player. So some people were questioning his work rate. You can't question that in the last couple of games.
No.
He's worked tirelessly for the benefit of the team. Now, if he feels more comfortable in the guy playing behind him and he knows when to give and go and when to cover it works. You know, previous to that, it looked as if we had 10 individuals playing for Celtic. Since the AC Milan game and Lenny coming out biting at people in the press conference, the club seems to have gelled. You know, and the whole club can only function if we're all in it together. And it's no want to be a cliche, keep the faith in that, but we all need to be in this together. We're all in the same crusade to get 10 in a row.
Well, there's no doubt about it. There is absolutely no doubt about that, Stevie. Our objective is the same. The collective objective is certainly the same. When you see Neil Lennon coming out, as you say, fighting in the press conferences, and then on the touchline, because we mentioned it last Thursday night, didn't we, the actual performance of Neil Lennon during that game, do you think he responds better when he's under siege?
I don't think Neil Lennon, the player, and I was fortunate enough to probably see every game Neil Lennon played for Celtic. Neil Lennon, the player, wouldn't have accepted some of the performances this season from his teammates. Now he's a manager, and I certainly don't know what happens behind the scenes. But from last week, for that press conference to now, even on Sunday, it was great for me to see John Kennedy standing in the technical area and Neil Lennon running up and down the stairs to tell him what he wanted to do. That's what I'm looking for in my management team. No sitting back and wait for things to develop, because if they don't develop, it's too late to change them. I was absolutely delighted with, how everything's went over the last couple of weeks.
Now, based on Sunday's performance, I was watching Neil Lennon's press conference yesterday where he tackled quite a few different subjects. Stevie, we'll run through some of them today, speaking about, first of all, Scott Bain and goals. I mean, from what Neil Lennon said, it would appear that Bain's a starter tonight, and quite rightly so.
I have a different opinion on that. I don't think Scott Bain's done much wrong, but if Barkas is to be the number 2 to Scott Bain, then Barkas shouldn't ever be considered to be the number 1 then, and he should be sold immediately or as soon as the transfer window opens, because if he can't displace Scott Bain at £4.5 million, then I don't think he's worthy to be the Celtic number 1.
Looking at the comment by Lenny, it was that there was no reason to change it in terms of the goalkeeper tonight. Your number 1, presumably, is Barkas coming in with a price tag like that, Stevie. So as soon as he's fit, you would put him right back in.
But if Barkas is there and he's signed as a number 1, and I heard a lot of the guys earlier the week saying Craig Gordon should have stayed. So Scott Bain would have been number 3. Craig Gordon's allowed to leave. Barkas isn't getting a game. Scott Bain's went from 3 to 1. I don't think if we've spent that amount of money on a goalkeeper that he should be behind Scott Bain.
I wouldn't have expected that personally, and I think that some of the criticism Barkas has come in for since he arrived at Celtic Park has been unjustified, I think. Now, obviously when things weren't going well, Stevie, quite a few players were being singled out for abuse or criticism, I would say, Barkas being one of them. Another player who was in the firing line for criticism was Shane Duffy. And we're now looking at Shane Duffy partnering probably near Beaton tonight, I would guess. Colin Watt suggested that Ayer's still out for this evening's game. Neil Lennon didn't mention Ayer in actual fact. He did speak about some of the other injured players that we've got. Would you start with Duffy and Beaton in the centre of defence this evening?
I would. I thought the really interesting comment earlier the week was, again, somebody, how high I hold him in esteem, in Martin O'Neill, speaking about Shane Duffy when he played for the Republic of Ireland when he was in charge, that even if the Republic of Ireland had won and Shane Duffy made a mistake, it really worried him and got him down, where they had to spend a lot of time, him and Roy Keane, getting Shane Duffy back up, where he didn't allow a simple mistake to affect the rest of his performance, which I found really, really surprising, because you see the stature of the man and right away you think, he'll just shrug that off. But he actually found it quite difficult, where it was starting to get into his psyche. He was really worrying about these things. So maybe the couple of wee mistakes he's made for Celtic have manifested itself into where it's a problem for him. But tonight, him and Beaton would start for me.
I find that really interesting, actually, because you look at Duffy, like you say, the stature, but the fact he's a leader, he's a captain, he's an international captain, that you'd be able to manage that, because everybody's going to make mistakes on the football field. But I like to that, Stevie, is his love and desire of Celtic Football Club, and trying to attain the 10 as well, because obviously it's important to anyone who's being employed by the club to achieve that goal. But I think there's a wee bit extra when you're a lifelong Celtic fan, surely. So has it been affecting him? Do you think he's over that certainly in the last couple of games?
I hope so. I think he's done okay the last couple of games. Everybody will make a mistake. My curiosity and how I'm intrigued by it is what happens when Julien's fit, El Hamid's fit. Do we then revert back to a 3, and where do they play? Or is the 4 going to suit? I think we could chop and change depending on the game and the opposition when we've got everybody fit and ready to go. The 4 seems to be working better just now, but I don't know if that is because we were trying to manufacture 3 players to play together when it was never going to work.
It did certainly look that way. It's an interesting dilemma to have for Lenny once Julien comes back, and he did comment that Julien would be back after the international break. It gives us Beaton, El Hamid, Julien, Ayer and Duffy to choose from. But of course we've got our 2 fullbacks, and Frimpong had been in the news as well, something that Lenny touched on with regards to the headlines around Jeremy Frimpong, which we spoke about yesterday. They were just scandalous headlines, Stevie, the usual job by some of the tabloid press. And it was unfair on Frimpong. Does he start for you tonight?
Yep, he would start for me, but he wouldn't be in the positions he's employed the last couple of games. I would have him one up. I would bring El Hamid back in at right back tonight and play Frimpong in front of him. I thought Frimpong's been very, very good the last 2 games.
Aye, I mean...
What I seen the difference, Paul, was I said last week, I would have wanted him to do what Didi Agat done and put the ball into dangerous areas. Instead, he always try to be precise, and I thought he'd done a few times on Sunday. Obviously the guys didn't get an end, but that's them not doing their job. But he put some fantastic balls into dangerous areas on Sunday.
I think you were right in that assertion, because he's a step ahead, isn't he, with the pace of him, and he gets himself into that position. So, like what O'Neill, going back to Martin O'Neill, said to Agat, just put it into the space, and it's down to the plethora of creative and forward players that we've got to get on the end of it. So El Hamid comes back in. He's a player that I think's he's cool. And at that level, I know there was the error against Ferencváros, but normally you can rely on El Hamid, and it will be good to see him coming back into the side as well. How impressed were you with Laxalt's performance? I know you were here for the European game where he was outstanding. I think he's going to be one of our top performers this season.
I think he's a great wee player, and there doesn't seem to be any fuss with him. He just goes bombs up and down the touchline a couple of times on Saturday or Sunday, when the ball went out of play, and he thought it was going to be his. He just put it down and got back into position. There wasn't any histrionics, there wasn't any dramas. He just played. Looks like one of the guys, and I've never met him, so I don't know anything about him. He just looks as if he's one of the guys who just likes playing football.
Do you think there's any possibility, because he started off so well, Stevie, people are looking at what would it take to bring him in on a permanent basis? He's 27 years of age, Uruguay international, parent club AC Milan. Do you think there's a possibility of a permanent deal? Is he the type of guy we would try and bring in? And if so, what kind of price tag are we looking at?
I think we have a real dilemma. If we get 10 in a row, and God willing we do, then we will. If we don't succeed in getting 10 in a row, our whole club's going to downsize. The season ticket holders won't go back in the amount they went back this year. There's no DVDs for 9, we nearly got 10. There's no merchandise. The guys will have to be sold, but they'll be sold at not the prices we expected during that summer transfer window. The 10 for Celtic is vital to continue the business model that we have at club. If we get that, then Laxalt fits that model. I heard you speaking yesterday to Colin, and you were saying about £4.5 million, but he's worth more than that. Well, that's not what he's worth, if that's what you're going to pay for him. If he develops the way he is and plays as well as what he does for Celtic, especially in the European games where he created a European record last week, if I'm correct, then his price will go up and you'll get other clubs interested in him.
Oh, definitely.
I don't think we have the first option to buy on that Sloan deal. So if he maintains that level, then other clubs would be interested in buying him.
Yeah, this is the dilemma, even with the likes of El Yunusi, whose performances were raised with the Southampton manager during the week, and he was talking about perhaps El Yunusi coming back and playing a part in the future with Southampton. So it is a double-edged sword. It would be great if this type of player came to Celtic permanently, because I think it is a step up in class when you look at Black Salt, when you bring him in, the impact that he's had. And how many games is it he's had now? Four games?
5 in it.
5 games. Yep. And his first win under his belt. So yes, I think the Celtic fans have taken to him in a big way. Now, talking of the Celtic fans, once again, big European night under the lights. Stevie, we're not going to be there. We'll be watching it in the studio. But it was great to see the Green Brigade had somehow managed to access, obviously via the club, to get their banner up. That was good to see.
The fantastic group of young men. You know, they go and they do all the food banks, the collections. They get a bad press, but they're nowhere near as bad as what they've got. I think they've got quite a reasonable relationship with Celtic. Mm-hmm. You know, sometimes there'll be boundaries that cross over and the club will take action. But predominantly they're good. But it's sad being about Celtic Park just now. See, when you go down yesterday and all the big lorries and that, and they're all getting set for a big European night, the TV cameras are there, but the only people that won't will be us. You know, it's sad that we're in this situation, and I don't think we need to be. I think there should be some fans allowed to go to the games. I can't get my head around, and I'm no dismissing COVID. I know how dangerous it's been. I know people it's affected by it. I know people who have it just now. But if there's a safe environment for fans to go back, I think open air spaces like Celtic Park, and I don't mean 60,000, but even 10,000 in the night, you know, social distancing. I'm sure the club would put all the protocols in place, and it's not unreasonable to get that amount of fans back.
There needs to come a point, Stevie, where you can see progress. You know, this is a big thing. I think a lot of the frustrations coming through the apparent lack of progress. You know, it's as if everything's just standing still just now. And I'm not just talking about football, just day-to-day life, with that constant threat hanging over you of another lockdown and how that's going to affect people and finances and business and all this kind of stuff. So, you know, people sometimes underestimate the power of football and the power of the community that you get from the football, Stevie. It's so important to so many people during these times. And again, I always, where possible, use any opportunities to raise awareness of the group that has been set up at St Roch's for some time now, Rock Talk. So again, for anyone who's tuned in today who's not heard about Rock Talk, could you just remind us the good work that's happening at the Rock?
We started a group called Rock Talk maybe about 18 months ago now, and it's basically just a talking group for people on a Sunday morning from 11am to 1pm, where we just come, we sit with a wee roll of sausage, a cup of tea or a coffee, and we talk about the week, and then we see if the guys are having any problems, what we can help them with. When the pandemic started and the lockdown went in, after the sort of initial real strictness of it and it started getting relaxed, we opened up the club and the two worlds collided. We've had some fantastic work done by the guys who come, but they get a great release being able to come to the park. And they just didn't have social isolation through that time. But we've now got a player, young Aaron Conley, who, delighted for him and his wife are going to have baby girls shortly. They're expecting twins. But how people can be cruel. We played a game last week. It was our first competitive game in the seniors, which we won 2-0. Somebody had a go at him during the game about his mental health state. Now, Aaron's been brave enough to go on various media platforms and explain it, but somebody had a go at him last week about that. You know, what despicable things go through your head that you would have a go at a young man who's brave enough to tell you his trials and tribulations to bring it into a football match. God help us, you know. The guy who done that must be a really horrible, twisted individual. It's
totally unacceptable. I've seen Aaron commenting about that on Twitter, actually, Stevie, so it's shocking, you know, and I think that the awareness levels are at their highest at the moment. You know, we've come, you know, we've progressed leaps and bounds, Stevie, over the piece. If you think about the awareness of mental health issues even 10 years ago, and to hear that this still goes on. And it goes on in a place where people are actually witnessing that, Stevie. You know, it's not as though the guy's doing it in secret. It's during a game of football. And as you say, Aaron's been brave enough. And he's constantly trying to raise awareness of time to tackle, mental health. And to hear that, it's really, really sad. So hopefully Aaron's doing okay. But again, I think it's important to highlight that it's happened.
I would say we weren't aware of it during the game. We first became aware of it after the game when it went on Twitter. That was the first time Aaron had spoke it. He just took it in during the game, and then obviously it must have been affecting him a wee bit at night that he put it out. But again, what sort of horrible individual would actually say that, during the game of football? That should be the furthest thing in your mind. Yeah, I want your team to win, or put in a tackle, or even if you're getting angry, game smash him or something, but you don't bring something like that into it. It's a despicable thing.
It's horrendous, Stevie. Now, you've given us your backline so far. What's the rest of your team for tonight? What's your predictions for the team line?
Right, so my team for tonight would be Barkas in goal, Elhamed, Duffy, Beaton, Laxalt, Frimpong, Brown, Kalmak and Elyounoussi, Christie and Ayeti.
Ayeti up front.
Yep.
Now that, again, it's one of these things when you've got, 4 fit strikers now. Eddie, Klamala, Griffis and Ayeti. It's a great dilemma for Neil Lennon to have, that's for sure. I think Ayeti brings something entirely different to any of the other 3 players. I've been really impressed with him because everybody's talking about him being this Gary Hooper kind of box type striker with that instinct to score goals in the box. I see a lot of his best play outside the box, Stevie. I
would start him. I think Eddie's our number 1 centre by a country mile. He gave us 70 minutes at the weekend, and I don't think there's any reason to risk anything. The young man's coming back from a serious illness. If there's any fatigue, keep him for Sunday. To me, I would love to win tonight, but Sunday's more important for me. We can't afford to drop any more points behind. Maybe some of the other clubs will get games cancelled now because of the COVID-19 restrictions, which we were slotted for. So that would allow us to catch up the points in the games in hand.
Well, I have got it on the agenda because we did speak about it in depth yesterday, Stevie, on the broadcast, but that was followed up obviously by Neil Lennon himself commenting on it. Before we do chat about it, let's have a look at some of the points coming through. Now, I was aware yesterday there was more than usual people on the forum side of the broadcast, Stevie, who were basically just in to agitate Celtic supporters. So on a live basis we are monitoring that. They are being blocked, and they're being blocked after the event as well. As of Monday next week, we have someone in a State of Mind who will be dealing with all manner of things, and monitoring this broadcast will be one of them. So you can rest assured, anyone who's coming in and trying to agitate Celtic supporters who are here for some chat, Stevie, for their daily intake of Celtic discussion, you can continue to enjoy that. We have something in place on Monday. In the meantime, I will try and block them live. Now, Stephen Forbes, considering the headline of yesterday's Acts on Bulletin, it was good to read Lennon responding to the Scottish Government's inconsistent responses to COVID breaches, but we expect more double standards. Now, it was interesting, and I'm not sure if Lenny or Celtic tune into the broadcast, Stevie, because we were questioning when will Celtic speak out on it. It was great to hear Lenny being pretty honest and pretty blunt about the whole situation yesterday.
I think Neil will always speak his mind, and it's something we need to admire him from. Should the club make an official statement? I prefer sometimes to do the work behind the scenes. And I've no doubt that Celtic will be engaging with the government and the football authorities to see what their thoughts on it is, because we can't be held to a different set of standards than anybody else. And again, it's been great to see the cheerleaders who wanted Celtic suspended and points taken off us. They've disappeared, i.e. Gordon Smith and Chris Boyd.
Yeah.
The one that Ball and Golly is the one that's been compared. I think it's the one that maybe we should compare it with would be the Lee Griffis thing. When Lee Griffis had a party for his girlfriend and some of her friends were there. We're led to believe and expected to believe that Scott Arfield had a party in his house. The company who set up the balloons knew if they set up a balloon for a man in his own house that he didn't attend and nobody else attended, then I think that's really strange behaviour. That he didn't turn up at his own birthday party.
Exactly.
That for me is strange. So there's more to this story than meets the eye and what's been reported. I think some of the other things that was thrown out about young Jeremy Frimpong was the flexi targets. but that there's more to this, and everybody should be held to the same protocols. I think the spokesman for the Scottish Government, who commended Rangers on their quick action and how they dealt with it, I think it's an absolute disgrace. And I would like to find out. I've seen Tom English, why would Celtic fans win? If this is the first yellow card, what's going to happen? What's that got to do with us? The standards are there, the precedent's been set. Celtic and Aberdeen suffered. St Mirren have had to get games postponed, so's Kilmarnock. What is the difference? I cannot tell you that.
So the comment you're referring to there, I did see that, Stevie, and if I understand that right, that's let's just leave it just in case everybody suffers. So Celtic have been punished, but let's leave it this time just in case the yellow card becomes a red card and football's shut down.
Well, it goes back to the thing in 2012, when some people are trying to tell you it's too big an institution to put down into the third division. But you need to abide by the rules.
Absolutely.
And if they've set the rules, then everybody needs to go with it.
I think Lennon came out, and he has over the last couple of weeks actually, and he's been pretty bold and forthright in his statements. He said, what I can comment on is the reaction from the government, which I find bewildering. There seems to be double standards. We were thrown under a bus and it's unacceptable. Got to agree with every single word Lenny said yesterday.
Well, if Neil's our leader and that's who we want to lead the club going forward, then I would rather he took the opportunities to do it. If you go back again, when Martin O'Neill spoke at a European press conference about the racist abuse that Neil Lennon suffered, and the whole room was aghast because they were there to talk about a game. What a brilliant platform to get your message out. Neil Lennon is doing a European press conference and he's bringing up inadequacies in the SNP government of this. The football authorities have disappeared again, which is no surprise, but the SNP's got something to say about everything. Let's hear what they've got to say about this.
It's a good point, Stevie. I mean, if Celtic were to release a statement and it pops up on everybody's social media and you can go and read the statement in full on the club's website, it probably gets what you would describe on a European level as a regionalised traction. Probably, your tabloids would pick up on it and report on it, and that would spread through the sports stories. But using the opportunity of a Europa League press conference where there's a far greater media presence from outside of Scotland is probably quite a good way of getting that message across. And we're continually told that politics and football don't mix or can't mix. But when it suits them, they do mix, don't they?
I think Celtic have got to be political. Absolutely got to be political. And I mean, from the higher echelons to the fans to the players, we have political beliefs and thoughts that we shouldn't hide away from. We won't all agree on everything. SNP, independence, great. The Labour Party, Socialist Party, we should be open to all. We should believe it. But if there's a point to be made, let's make it through a football club.
Now, IH Decorating, welcome back to the show. You're commenting on YouTube. And for anyone who's watching the broadcast on YouTube, make sure that you do subscribe on there, because we're broadcasting on a daily basis and sometimes multi-times on a match day. So tonight, Stevie, we'll be covering the game half an hour before the match, at half time, and half an hour after. Win, lose or draw, we're there straight after the game broadcasting. Sometimes it's no easy, Steve. It's been pretty difficult a few times this season, but we do it and we always will do it. And IH Decorating comment, can't take anything for granted tonight. Look how difficult the Czech B-side made it against Scotland. Sparta will still be fielding a capable side. I think there's 6 or 7 out, isn't there, on the old the COVID casualty list. So Neil Lennon took that on board also, but I don't think anyone will take it for granted tonight, Stevie. Even though we've got the home advantage, even without the fans, I still think it's an advantage. How do you see tonight going?
I think we'll win 2-0. But again, it's all if we can maintain the momentum that we've gained over the last couple of games and put in that level of performance, then I expect us to win. If Slavia Prague, and I don't imagine they're the greatest side in the world, but they're further weakened, we see what it's done to us, where you can't put out your top guys, then if we put in the right effort, then I see us winning the game. I don't expect it to be easy. Everybody will come and do their best, but we should be able to overcome Slavia Prague.
We've got a couple of people agreeing with you actually, Stevie. Niz on YouTube reckons it'll be 2-0. as does one of our viewers on Facebook, 2-0 Celtic, hail hail. And Scott Graham, who's commenting on YouTube, welcome to the show, Scott. Afternoon at 2-0 tonight. Robert Arbuckle think 3-1 Celtic, same team as Sunday. I think what I've said is the changes I would make, and I take your Barkas point on board actually, Stephen. I think Bain might take that as a slap in the face, but it would certainly give Barkas a bit of confidence, wouldn't it, if you started with him tonight?
I'm saying I would start with Barkas. If you're asking me who'll start the game tonight, I think it would be Neil Lennon, Scott Bain.
Yeah, going by his comments yesterday, it would appear that Bain will start the game. The other change I would make is if Ayer's fit, for me, he starts, but I'm not quite sure because he wasn't asked about Ayer's fitness, although he was asked about Julian Forrest and Mikey Johnston. I mean, Julian and Forrest, two guys who would be picked every single game, Stevie. I think there's an added appreciation of Jamesy Forrest now that he's out the team.
Definitely, he's became somebody that's on. We miss him so greatly. When he played, the poor guy gets slaughtered every week by vast amounts of Celtic fans. Now he's not there, or how much we miss him. It just shows you how fickle we can be sometimes.
We can be, Stevie. And the thing with the Axon Bulletin, I guess, also is it's every day. So your view when things aren't going so well might change if things start to pick up. So over the last couple of games, I think we've been pretty positive.
Well, one of my things is, and it's just how you can be portrayed by the Celtic fan, whether you're liked. And I don't mean dislike. Dislike's too strong a word. Is a difference between Tom Rogic and Olivier Ntcham.
Yeah.
Everybody likes Tom Rogic. Tom Rogic was dying to get out of Celtic Park. The deal fell through that he'd manufactured, and he's welcomed back with open arms. The reports and the innuendos was that Ntcham wants away. If he's a bad game, he wants away, he's agitating for a move, we need to get rid of him. Two guys in the exact same position. One's allegedly and one's fact. But Tom Rogic's accept back open arms because we all love Tom.
See, I find that really interesting as well. The psychology of that, Stevie. It's quite baffling.
I even heard Kevin already calling him Tam. So he was embracing him even more.
Oh, Tam, the Wizard of Oz. But Kevin's got his own vocabulary for Celtic players, Stevie. We know that by now, and that's just a wee dig to Kev, who'll be in tonight. He'll be in covering the game this evening. It'll be good to see him. Sean McCrory 8, get the win tonight. We'll be back-to-back wins and get some momentum really going again. I think when I look at the fixtures coming up, Stevie, it's going to be interesting to see how Milan and Lille fit this evening, because for me it was quite difficult. Milan are probably the better side. However, I don't underestimate Lille at all, and I've said a couple of times, I think our 2-2 draw away from home against Lille will actually improve with age. I think when we look back on that result at the end of the season, we'll realise just how good a result it was against a very strong French side.
I watched them on Sunday night playing Lyon. They were very, very good, very pacey. Lyon went down to 10 men after about 60 minutes and they peppered their goal but just didn't have the killer instinct. But they were a very, very good side and dominated the game. For us it was Musa come on with about 10 minutes to go, and if I ever got to do any business we should go and try and get him and loaned in January.
Anyone with a budget, Stevie, marrying up Dembele and Edouard for me would be on a winner. I think we got tiny wee kind of sparks, wee signs that was a partnership to behold. We didn't see it long enough at Celtic. You know, it's one of these things, like I've mentioned as well, when Belgium were playing England in a friendly last month, you're looking at the world's best nation, the number one ranked team in the world, incidentally managed by Martinez and Maloney. And the two centre halves are Denayer and Boyata.
Both of them are great players for Celtic.
Yeah, I thought so.
Boyata fell out of favour obviously because of his antics before the game, but very, very good player. When he came back for him in the World Cup, you know, and he looked a really, really accomplished player for us. Good players. You don't get to be the Belgian partnership if you're not any good. Absolutely not.
Now, Jim Cooper comes in to say £35 million for Eddie isn't a real expectation. Nobody outside Scotland has heard of him. Now, these are things that, listen, I'll discuss that, no problem at all. I think what you start doing, Stevie, is you use a benchmark with Scottish football transfers or transfers from Celtic. And the benchmark at the moment is Kieran Tierney at £25 million going down to Arsenal. Now, what has changed, obviously, is the financial situation in global sport, not just football. So there's going to be a hit. I mean, so I think some of the figures that I've seen in the press, etc., were elevated. I've seen 40 million. I don't think any footballer in the near future is going to be leaving Scottish football for a figure around the £40 million mark, or even 35, Jim, to be fair. But Edouard does have a high value, and if you use £25 million as a benchmark with Kieran Tierney, you add to that the international performances, because people are looking at, as they were with Dembele with the France under-21 side, Stevie, they're looking at Edouard's goal-scoring record with the international team. And again, I don't want to think about Edouard leaving Celtic, particularly in January, and I know that finances will dictate that, Stevie, but he certainly does have a value. And is the value more than Kieran Tierney's value when he went to Arsenal? I would argue yes.
The COVID's going to have an effect on all the transfer values. They say, going back to Jack Grealish, James Maddison, having to stay with their clubs and re-sign. So it's got an effect. What would Edouard be worth now? Probably less than what would have had if he didn't have COVID. But to counter Jim's point there, who's ever heard of Marley Watkins? You know, excess of 30 million quid.
Yep.
If you ask me who would I have, Edouard or Marley Watkins, it's Edouard 10 times out of 10. You know, no caps, nothing. No Champions League goals.
No.
So I think we shouldn't undersell ourselves either. You know, I don't think the values that we were expecting pre-COVID we would actually get previous. And I don't think Celtic will sell anybody in January unless Neil Lennon wants to bring somebody in and replace us like for like.
You're right. I think Tam Roderick's value's gone up though. From 4 million. Joseph Jack scoring against Hamilton and St Mirren doesn't make you a world class player. Of course it doesn't. I mean, this is the thing with Scottish football, and we've been battling this kind of view on Scottish football since year dot, Stevie, but that's when the European stage and the international stage becomes important for Celtics, you know, to sell on. And we've seen players being sold on for big transfer fees. We've seen it over a period of years, going right back to Aidan McGeady, right up to you know, our latest sale. What was our latest sale? Kieran Tierney, 25 million. So we've seen a number of them, be that Dembele, Foster, even, you know, Ki Sung-young went for a good fee, and Wanyama, Van Dijk, you know, these players have gone for big money. So Celtic can command that, and I think there's always the caveat that, yes, the domestic game isn't as strong as it is down south, we all know that. But if you perform in Europe, if you perform in an international stage, then the value goes up.
I don't think anybody's claiming that these guys are world stars. I think they're claiming they're very good footballers. You know,
yep.
And if you take it, that probably our position isn't the English Premier League, but maybe Championship. The guys for the Championship are going for some amount of money. You know, if you're going to get transferred for the English Championship to a Premier League team for £30 million, is that a higher standard than where we are? Is our guys with all these proven international caps at under 21 record goal scorers? I would think a scout would look at that more favourably than a guy that's coming from Brentford.
I mean, Stevie, this is the thing. I don't know any real Scottish football fans who is under any illusions about the value or the quality even of our game. I think what I like about Scottish football, and it's something Johnny Owen mentioned just the other week there when we interviewed him for the Three Kings documentary, was it's still got a realness about it. It's got something that people fell in love with football for. You watch football now, it's almost like box office wrestling. It's like WWF wrestling, the way that they dress it up, but the actual product isn't as good as they make it look and the way that they market it. At least when you watch Scottish football, it's real. And I think when you fell in love with football, it was for all these aspects that Scottish football still has.
Sorry for interrupting there, but see if these guys who come here and they're so good, how do they not run amok? We've had loads of guys who came with glowing reputations and really struggled.
Yep.
So can it be that bad? You know, maybe the standard isn't as high as what it was 30 years ago, but it's a difficult league to play in.
So, absolutely.
So if you can stand out on a regular basis, get 9s and 10s every week, you know, your performance, you're a good player. Because some of the guys that you come up against are going to give you a hard time.
Well, one example of that is a player that we've spoken about already, Jiri Jarazic, who I think spent about 18 months at Celtic, and he was speaking about not only Neil Lennon's management style or leadership qualities, he was speaking about the Scottish game. And the way he was speaking, it was almost as if the midfield bypassed them. Now, this is a player that we bought from Chelsea, international footballer, Stevie. He was on massive wages when he came to Celtic. Was he a flop? I wouldn't maybe go as far to say that, but he certainly didn't run amok, did he?
No, definitely.
And there's many others like him.
I think the standard, when you look at it, and I've heard you saying, Paul, you don't watch many games. I watch football every single night of the week, and a lot of them is from the English Premier League. And even when some of the top teams are playing, it's not very good. I watched Liverpool playing Atalanta the other night, and I've always liked watching Atalanta. I was bemused by their performance. They were trying to play a high line against a fantastic, pacey. No challenges. Not one yellow card. Your team's been beat 5-0 at home, and they didn't put in one wee nasty challenge in the whole game. I thought, this can't be Italian football. And it wasn't Liverpool at full strength. It's incredible. So when Scottish football is probably not at its peak just now, but we've still got a competitive league, a competitive product.
I think so, and I actually think we undersell it, Stevie, a lot of the time. I mean, obviously the fans in Scotland are the lifeblood of the game, which isn't the case in a lot of these big leagues, because the big leagues are actually relying on things out with the turnstiles ticking along, and that I think is something we should be proud of as football fans. There's a wee message on here about Rock Talk. Before I bring it to your attention, Stevie, every time you talk about it, you mention that you have a roll on sausage. Now, I'm about a year vegetarian, you realise that? And people ask me all the time, do you never fancy a bacon sandwich? Every time you say a roll on sausage, that's when I start, salivating and thinking about the good old days.
Straight from our sponsor, Donny the Butcher.
Andrew Smith has joined us on YouTube. If it wasn't for Rock Talk and the football at the Rock, God knows where I'd be. That's testament to you. I know we Andy well, and Andy's one of the guys. Andy's a real success story for Rock Talk. I hope he doesn't mind me saying that. But even when the lockdown came in and Andy appeared, the group was all there, and Andy was isolated. He would stand away. And even one Sunday, we'd brought in a big container. The guys were there with a jet wash, and they were taking all the rough paint off. And they were having good fun. And I'd say to Andy, go and join in. And he couldn't get to join. And then as it progressed and he became an integral part of the group. Then he would go and help Terry Conley, who's been great for us, to do the painting. Then Andy would get the painting. If Terry wasn't there, they were up at 8 o'clock in the morning. They weren't getting home at 4:30. So it's a testimony to Andy himself, how far he's came and how much he's improved and how much he's helped the club. Brilliant, and great for sharing that with us as well, Andrew. Thanks for joining us. Testament to you and everybody doing it at the Rock as well, Stevie. Brilliant work you're doing. Red Scotland, I want to thank you actually for your message yesterday. You were telling me all about the lurkers who are coming in and lowering the tone of the broadcast, which is there for Celtic fans like yourself. As I was saying earlier, we do have somebody who will be monitoring that live as of Monday. So slowly but surely we'll weed them out, Stevie, and it'll just be we can just all argue amongst ourselves, which is what we were doing a couple of weeks ago. Red Scotland states via YouTube, Edouard is among the best performers in the France under-21 side. I think he's got a record, is he not, for the goals that he's scored against the games that he's played. Only top players have that accolade, and that comes with a price tag. Absolutely agree with that, 100%. And you look at how Dembele, the progression of Dembele coming to Celtic, Stevie, and I know we got him probably a lot cheaper than we should have done. I mean, I think there was a £6 million bid from Spurs maybe 8 or 9 months before. We picked him up for £500,000. But he uses Celtic as a platform. We all know that, despite the fact that his Twitter account obviously bigs him up as a big Celtic fan. I don't think he's got access to his Twitter account. And then he goes to Lyon for big money. And a lot of that was down to his Champions League performances, I would guess, as well as his performances for the under-21s side as well. Now, would you argue that maybe Eddie hasn't done it at the top level in Europe yet? I just love his arrogance. I love his arrogance, that plucking the ball out of the air, facing up to 3 and 4 guys and going, I've got the skill to beat you. Certainly it doesn't come off all the time, but to have that arrogance and confidence in your own ability, you've got to be a player. I love guys going to do something a wee bit different instead of conform and pass, sideway back. Go and have a wee go, do something different, and you'll create an opportunity. I love him. I think he's a great player. What I love about that, self-belief, Steve, is without that, when Lustig plays that header to you in the Scottish Cup final, you're one-on-one with the goalie, without that self-belief, you can't keep that composure and put that ball away the way Eddie did. So people see arrogance sometimes as a bad thing. Sometimes I think you need it.
No, in footballers, it's not a bad thing in footballers. If you don't have that confidence, even if you're very talented and you're withdrawn, you won't get to the peak of where your ability should take you. You need that wee bit of self-confidence, bordering on arrogance, that's going to take you by people maybe of a equal ability.
Absolutely. Now, Michael the boy, you're commenting via Twitter. Welcome to the show, Michael. League is crucial this season, as Stevie says, as big decisions will be made next season. Now, this is something I spoke to Kevin about on Monday, and then I asked Lawrence and Colin during the week as well, Stevie. I take nothing for granted when it comes to the fact that we're in another Scottish Cup final. Brilliant achievement. I'm delighted. I'm absolutely over the moon that we were able to go out there and convincingly beat Aberdeen 2-0. I think it was a convincing win. Now, we're 90 minutes away from a quadruple treble, which is astonishing. I mean, will we even realise, I'm not taking it for granted, will we even realise how big that is until years later when we're looking back on it? I don't know. So we're now looking at this season. We're 90 minutes away from that incredible accolade. We're going for 10 in a row. And what I've said to all the guests this week, Stevie, is if we get those two things, if we win the Scottish Cup to clinch the quadruple treble and we win 10 in a row, I'm satisfied. Now, I've said in the past I want to win everything, and I stand by that. I think Celtic should always have that mentality, the Jock Stein mentality. We don't play friendlies, even testimonial games, Stevie, we want to win them. I've always had that mentality when it comes to Celtic, even when we were really poor. It wasn't good enough, it wasn't acceptable. So what do you think is realistically, what would you be happy with this season?
It's unprecedented dominance of Scottish football, and it's absolutely brilliant to be living through this. You're in the final, you need to go and take care of the final, which would give you the quadruple treble. The 10 in a row league title is the most important thing. If you're in a great position to do that, the other cup competitions, whether it's the League Cup or the Scottish Cup, can filter into that. But if you don't get 10 in a row and you were to win the other two cup competitions, the season's a failure. I don't think we would be able to continue the business model during COVID going into next year if we don't get 10 in a row. I think it's absolutely vital for us to push on and continue where we are. Probably I would go along the same as yourself, Paul. But in the final of the Scottish Cup for the quadruple treble, let's take care of that as a final and concentrate on 10 in a row. If the other two cup competitions to come along and you go for 5 trebles in a row, absolutely fantastic. But there will become a time when you'll lose a cup competition, and for me it wouldn't be the end of the world. But no winning 10 in a row, I think, could have real serious consequences for Celtic Football Club.
Well, this is my big concern as well. You know, as you say, everything's geared towards that. It's geared towards where that takes you the following season as well, in terms of the potential for Champions League riches, Stevie, and the marketing. You can never underestimate that. Again, for a club like Celtic, it's a huge part of the annual turnover. So, absolutely agree with you. That is a priority. With that in mind, when we approach the League Cup, Scottish Cup, something I would never suggest previously, but under the circumstances, would you try and maybe bleed in some of the players who are on the fringes of the side? I mean, I don't mean go out gung-ho with 11 untried youngsters, but you see it in the English game. You've seen it for a long time actually down there, particularly with the League Cup. Do you bring in 5 or 6 guys who are not getting game time ordinarily?
I think it's a difficult situation. I think probably Neil and his backroom staff would have more of an idea than what we would. But if we've got 26 first team players, then surely we could make up an 11. You're no bringing in youth players, you're no bringing in reserves, you're bringing guys who are members of the first team squad. How do I say this? Would I rather lose a cup tie with these guys playing than my normal 11? Probably. You know, because then the only person that would take flack over that, and it's a shame, would be the manager, because he's the guy who's lost the 5 trebles in a row. But as a club, it would be great to win it. Get me 10 and a quadruple, I'm more than happy.
I'll be happy with that, Stevie, let me tell you. I don't ask for much. Now, on Facebook, brilliant me post on Facebook. Now, unfortunately, I don't know who it is because there is a registration process if you're on Facebook so that I can see your picture and your name. So welcome to the show. Celtic were founded on a political issue, feeding hungry people. Nothing has changed. If it had, Marcus Rashford wouldn't be doing what he is. We have a duty to be political. I agree with every word of that. Every single word of it, Stevie.
But that's what I'm saying. That comes from within the fan base. That's our beliefs. The majority, not everybody can be tarred because we've got to accept everybody with different beliefs from us. But I would imagine the majority of our fans all have those beliefs and the will to help other people less fortunate than ourselves. So it's got to come from within. And if we manifest ourselves into different groups, different stages, then we can help all these people. We can't take over the role of government. God willing, we could, but we can do our best. And I think sort of the things, the Green Brigade probably lead most of them, then they're all for the good.
We spoke about Marcus Rashford last week on another podcast, Stevie. Just another wee word for that young man. We look at modern football. Sometimes it disgusts you, with the money and some of the antics of players. There's been some headlines in the press this week even that disgust you, in terms of the modern footballer, this elite kind of nature of the game that probably didn't exist back in the day, where there was always a disparity in terms of wages, but it's got so big that they're almost superstars and all this kind of stuff. All of a sudden, Marcus Rashford uses that platform for good. Absolutely astonishing young man.
He's doing very well. I think it would be remiss if we don't mention guys like Didier Drogba, Craig Bellamy, who all have their own foundations, helping people. Marcus Rashford stepped up to the plate during the pandemic to feed kids. I remember seeing George Galloway, who's no everybody's favourite politician at the moment, speaking on the Tam Cowan show. Remember, he used to do the thing on Monday night, was it Off the Ball or something? Yeah. And he says, right, if you could Prime Minister of Scotland, the First Minister, what would your thing be? So they're waiting for a witty, politicised thing. Maybe make sure every school child gets a hot meal every day of the year.
Yep.
So Marcus Rashford is now taking this to a different level, and God bless him for doing it.
Oh, definitely. Now, Francie W, who comes on the show regularly, welcome back, Francie. You're commenting on YouTube. Just a wee aside from tonight's game, gents. If we win the 10, because nobody's taking it for granted, Steve, it's going to be a tough one. Does Lenny hang up the gaffer's jacket and retire a club legend? I think there's going to be a lot of changes. If and when we win the 10 in a row, I think there'll be a completely different outlook on, let's say, the next 5 to 10 years at Celtic Football Club. Not only due to the fact that we've reached that milestone, Stevie, but also everything else that's happening in terms of the financial impact of COVID.
But would this be the end of the 5-year plan at the end of this year? With a couple of years after Brendan, but for the next wee bit of Neil? So would this be the second 5 for the first 5, and this is the second one? Usually businesses of that size have a 5-year plan. Yeah. If you get to the end of this and he wins a 10, I would think you would just need to ask him what he wanted to do. I don't think you could replace him. I think he would have to make that decision. I've had enough and I want to go away with legendary status.
The big thing around some of the discussions we had in relation to Neil Lennon over the last few weeks, Stevie, was whether or not it was his team. And obviously we know under the circumstances he didn't assemble the coaching team that he's working with. And obviously Damien Duff leaves, you then expect perhaps Lenny to have a say in the man who comes in and Gavin Strachan. I think what would be important, personally, is, and I do like the continuity of having that boot room mentality. I do like that. Going right back to the boot room of Jock Stein with Neil Mockin and Sean Fallon and, even Jimmy Steele, the masseur, Bob Rooney. I like that mentality, the boot room mentality, but at the same time, you've got to have a coaching team that you can work with. I mean, you mentioned Martin O'Neill a couple of times, John Robertson, Stevie Walford. It was a team rather than the individual, wasn't it? You go back to Brian Clough, even Steen himself. I think it's important, even in the modern day, for you to assemble your own coaching team.
I read last week that Neil Lennon chose to bring in Gavin Strachan as opposed to bringing Henrik Larsson back. The coaching staff that was there, Damien Duff's left, John Kennedy was there, they allowed Neil Lennon to win everything. So it wasn't a problem last year. We have a few bad results and it's a real problem this year. the guys that Neil Lennon worked previously with Celtic, everybody should know and be aware they ain't ever coming back to Celtic, and they shouldn't be back.
No.
You know, that wasn't the right culture and the right people to be involved at Celtic Football Club at that level of management.
You're right. And I mean, see, when you look at the incoming management team of Ronnie Deila, John Collins, and we know how that happened. You know, you've got Ronnie Deila there, who is a forward-thinking young coach in Norway, comes to the attention of Man City, who are interested in employing him as the head of their academy. There is dialogue between Celtic and Man City. We're going to make him the number 2 to Roy Keane. Roy Keane says he doesn't want the job when everybody expected him to take it. Deila gets a job, John Collins is his number 2. I was saying during the week there, Stevie, and it's taken me a while to come to this conclusion, but I actually think, and this might not be very popular, I think Ronnie should have remained the number 2, and I think we should have given Collins the management's job, because he would have been able to take the pressure, because he's got the ego, he's been successful by winning a trophy in Scotland, and by the way, in name alone, I would not have put Ronnie Deila in that position. Let him go away and do what he was good at, but put all the focus and the limelight on Collins, and I think that was a mistake.
He just wasn't universally popular, was John Collins, was he? As a manager, even at Hibernian, and the players didn't like him. You know, again, this is what you have to do, and because of the way he was a great professional.
Yeah, absolutely.
Installing that with him and Ronnie was probably a job too hard, you know, but they were undermined for the minute they started by some of the senior pros. It was really unfortunate. Was he a failure, Ronnie Deila? Certainly not.
No.
Certainly not. He continued to run. Probably what you're saying might have worked better if John Collins, but John wasn't universally accepted by the Celtic players because the standards that him and Ronnie were trying to introduce, the guys didn't want it.
Culture change, wasn't it?
It was, how can you not want to be the best that you can be at that level?
I know, and it is sometimes really, really fine margins. So Ronnie Deila wanted to introduce what he called the 24-hour athlete, Stevie, and that came down to conditioning, diet, mentality. All of these things that I think many of them were probably what Brendan Rodgers implemented as well, but I think he ruled differently from Ronnie. Yeah, obviously, if you didn't go with the culture and be part of that culture, you weren't at the club.
Well, everyone went out the door apart from Scott Brown.
Scott Brown.
You know, and even sometimes now, we could still be doing with bringing some of these guys back. No, on them winter Sundays would you want to bring them back. They disrupted a club, you know, where they nearly got a decent guy's job who was cheated out a treble. You know, people don't speak very fondly of him, but he was cheated out a treble by a referee and a match officials.
Well, when Ronnie was on this show, and he was still managing in Norway at the time, he agreed he'd be back for the 10 in a row party, Stevie. So the invite obviously is still there from a hell of a lot of Celtic fans who still look back fondly on Ronnie. I think his legacy is always going to be Kieran Tierney, Callum McGregor, Chris Ayer, Ryan Christie. He gave them all their debuts for Celtic. There's his legacy. A
thoroughly decent man, you know, who came to be interviewed for the number 2 position and get elevated to be the manager of Celtic. Now, he can't knock back that opportunity. Hindsight, was it the right thing to do? I think he might have still been at Celtic if he'd have been brought in that position, the number 2.
Yeah.
You know, because he's obviously got something in the coaching. Manager of Celtic comes with so many added pressures and sidebars to it that maybe he just wasn't at that level at that time.
No, you're right. You're right. Now, this is a great response from Jungle Lion. I've got to read this one out on Twitter. And this is in response to not being world class if you're scoring goals against Hamilton and St Mirren doesn't make you world class. Defending against St Mirren and Hamilton doesn't make you world class. Virgil van Dijk. Enough said. I think he proved the point, did he not? Big Virgil's done okay.
No, he's done a great job. Again, I think Virgil van Dijk's improved since he left Celtic. You know, going down to that and playing in that environment, changing his lifestyle. You know, he had all the tools here, but he didn't apply them all the time. I think he's now applying them to his professional career.
I think so, and again, going back to the Ronnie Deila interview, which is on the archive if you want to catch up on iTunes, Spreaker, YouTube. Very interesting. He did speak about Virgil van Dijk, and he said that, you know, in order for him to take his talent to another level, Stevie, he had to change a lot of his lifestyle choices as well. And he reckons he only done that when he left Celtic. Again,
you're held to higher standards when you go to different places. our club went to a different level when Brendan Rodgers was in there. Everybody had to go to his level, and if you didn't adhere to the levels, you were no good to him. You know, that's why so many guys left and so many good professionals came in to help us, because if you didn't go with what he wanted, and again, that sometimes didn't fit in with the hierarchy of the club because they wanted a wee say, but there was one man in charge and you knew who it was.
Oh, definitely. Absolutely, Stevie. Now, one last thing to discuss today is the inclusion of Lee Griffis in the Scottish international squad for the forthcoming 3 matches. Incidentally, Ireland are also playing 3 matches. That's for Kevin Graham, who thought that Shane Duffy was going to get a wee rest. I'm not having a dig at Kevin too much today, am I? That's twice.
Not at all.
He can get me back tonight. I think when you're looking at the beginning of the season, Stevie, and we've followed Lee Griffis all season because we were, shouting for him to get back in the squad for long enough, him and Tam Rogic. This is almost like, the final part of the Lee Griffis jigsaw this season, I think. Even though he's not consistently playing for Celtic, he's picked again for Scotland. I think Scotland need him up front. Well done, Lee Griffis.
Brilliant for Lee Griffis. Again, as a Celtic fan, I'm a Glaswegian more than a Scotsman. I would hope all our players pick up a wee niggling injury on Sunday, none of them go anywhere with Scotland, so that when we come back, our guys will be COVID free, will be injury free, and we push on for 10 in a row. The Scotland thing, it doesn't really carry any weight with me or any great favour.
I was actually talking about it yesterday, Stevie, and I said if I was an international footballer, so it was a big stretch, it really was. I wouldn't be playing international football during this time. If I was, with young kids, I wouldn't be putting anybody at risk, and people might say, kids don't get affected. There's been cases where they are. I wouldn't be putting myself at risk or my family at risk if I was an international footballer. And it would appear that the only way you could get out of that is by retiring from the international game.
But who has a duty of care to the players
exactly.
here? Does the SFA has a duty of care because they're under their guidance when they leave Celtic Park to go and play for Scotland? So how do they protect their players? Because according to Ryan Christie, he adhered to every protocol that was put in place. The doctor told him it was okay, then we lose Ryan Christie for 14 days. So who takes responsibility? Do we get compensated for that? Because he's our player, we play him, and he can't play for our games because of something that happened in international duty. Now, it's not an injury that happened during the game, because that can happen. It wasn't an injury that happened during training, because that can happen. That was somebody who gave him wrong advice. Now, if that's a guy who's a Scotland doctor giving wrong advice, I'm not sending my player to work under him again.
No, absolutely. And this is the issues I think that it's creating, because Robert Arbuckle mentions on Facebook, why can't Celtic just pull all players from international squads? Because if you do that, then they can implement this ruling, Stevie, whereby, and I don't know if they would, you would then miss your next game. And I think that the biggest issue that we've got at the moment is that the club have a bit of a power over the country has the power, or the authorities have that power over the club. And it would appear to me that the only way you could get out of it is if the players themselves said, right, I retire from international football. Now, whenever this horrific pandemic clears, and football then can be enjoyed without that added concern, would they understand? Would the manager at that stage, would the authorities allow you to play again? I don't know, but I would be all about, as you say, a duty of care of myself and my family.
But you're getting into these hotspots of COVID.
Yep.
So how are you going to be able to protect everybody all of the time when you're away? If you turn up for Scotland and you're going to be doing any travelling, you're not travelling in a private plane. So you've got to go through the airport system. You've got to go through the airplane system. Then you've got to come out and get the transport through the airport destination you arrive at. Then go to a hotel and be mixing with other people in a hotel. When you're in Scotland, you're in your own wee bubble. You're exposing that to other people. I understand if you don't turn up, and I'm sure the Scottish Football Association would hammer us if we didn't send our players, but how can anybody tell you you're no sore and unfit to play? Yeah,
exactly. You're absolutely right. And I just hope we come out of the next international break without the absences that we experienced the last time, Stevie. We've got a couple of games to look forward to before then. Tonight, obviously, we're back in Europe, and then on Sunday, Motherwell. would you expect a few changes on Sunday? I think people are crying out for Turnbull to get a game.
My line-up tonight is partially based on going to Motherwell, a very early kick-off on Sunday. So, for me, I'd love to win tonight, but I would much rather win on Sunday. So we contain that momentum going into the international break. I think we're certainly good enough to beat Motherwell. Again, it's down to fitness and guys who want to turn up. Because you can spread the team about a wee bit tonight. Use your substitutes wisely. And then be ready for Sunday.
Well, I hope that happens, because if there was a criticism against Lille and it was an excellent performance, I think obviously Ayer's injury was a big part in the fact that we lost 2 goals. It was just the lateness of the substitutes. You're making 3 subs. It was Cham, Christie and Brown at, I think, 81 minutes. Probably would have been better 20 minutes earlier. But for tonight's game against Sparta Prague, we will be live 30 minutes before kick-off. We'll be back at half-time and at full-time. So please join us. Thank you all for getting involved today. But all that's left for me to say is Stevie Mullan, thank you again for joining me on A Celtic State of Mind.
Thanks for having me, Paul. Pleasure. Thank you.